Okay, well, good afternoon. This is Jay Waters. I'm with the Americans in Wartime Museum and our oral history project, The Voices of Freedom. Today is 16 November 2019. We're in Oceanport, New Jersey, and it's my pleasure to meet you, sir, Mr. Alden Lewis West. Sir, good afternoon. If you would, could you just tell us your full name and your date of birth, please?
My full name is Alden Lewis West.
And when were you born, Mr. West?
1924,
Okay, and I understand
October 19th.
October 1924. And where were you born?
I was born in Monmouth Medical Center.
Okay, yeah, very close by here. And what war did you participate in?
World War II,
And what branch of service were you with?
Air Force.
The Air Force, and actually the Army Air Corps initially, right? Yeah, so with the Army Air Corps.
Army Air Corps.
Yep. So thinking about your family members, your parents, brothers and sisters, uncles, did you have any other family members that had served in the military before you?
Yes, to all of them.
Could you tell us a little bit about them?
Well, my older brother, he was an officer on a boat that ended up in the Pacific, where he would be had little airplanes flying off his small boat.
Okay.
For purposes of examination and so forth. But he would also deliver food to various locations so that we would have enough food, because we were spread all over half the world.
Yes. And this was in the Pacific, that your brother was in the Pacific?
And that was in this Pacific. And that was not an easy job, because we were all starving.
Yes. Well, and you served in the Pacific as well, right?
Pardon me?
You served in the Pacific Theater of War as well, correct?
All my time was in the
Yeah.
Pacific.
But so did you ever run into your brother while you were there?
No, I know where a ship is, and I flew over it one time,
Okay.
in Philippines.
Sure. Okay. And then besides your brother, anyone else that had served in the military even previously, like World War I or anything?
So, well, I had an uncle, a relative.
Yes.
My Uncle Harry was in World War. That was in the earlier World War.
Oh, in World War I, your Uncle Harry. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And he when I came home, he gave me a nice car of my own, which was a big thing in those days.
A car, an automobile.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah? What kind? Tell us about that. What kind of car was it?
Well, that was I think it was a Chevy convertible, and it was back. It had one driver's seat and so forth, but it didn't. It had the back seat was more seats.
Okay.
But that was so you had to pull out the back end of the car. It was
Yeah.
an old car he rebuilt for me.
Well,
That
so
was nice.
this you must have been a young guy then. And
Oh,
you had
that
your own
was-
convertible driving around town.
Well, more than that, the cars were hard to come by.
Yeah.
And because of the guys getting out, and you didn't have the money to buy a new car, and the banks, like in my case, they kept my money. They
Okay.
wouldn't give it to me back when I got home after 3 years.
Well, that's good. That's good. I asked you a little bit before, but think back to December 7th, 1941, when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. Where were you that day, and what do you remember from that day?
Oh no, I guess not too much at that time, because at that time I was in high school,
Sure.
and I was very concerned about it because we had Fort Monmouth nearby, so I was aware of the service people, but I didn't have any idea that I would go into the air service. it was a shock to me to find that happen. And in other words, what are they going to gain? That's what I was wondering. More York than Pacific.
Where were you? Did you hear it over the radio, or what do you remember about even first finding out about that?
I was still in well, I guess 8th grade or thereabouts. When the war started, I was right on top of it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I was always following up on things before the action started, of actions overseas.
Well, then, why did you join the military?
Because I wanted to get in the Army before they drafted me and put me in the Army when I wanted to be in the Air Force.
Yeah. And what year was this that you joined?
Let's see. I think it was 1940. 42, 43.
Yeah, probably like you were about 18 years old, 19 years old.
I was,
60.
no, I wasn't.
He was 60.
I was,
Okay, a little younger even.
I was younger. I
Okay.
think I was like 15,
Right.
Okay.
and they were drafting 15.
Well, did you have to lie about your age to get in, or what do you think happened
No,
there?
because they didn't have enough men, so they were drafting 18 in that
Okay.
manner.
Okay.
And I figured they're going to draft me, and I was healthy, and I'll go where they send me.
Sure.
But I wanted to go in the Air Force. I signed up right away, and
Right.
then I was at Air Force.
Well, let's talk about that. So, where did you go for your initial induction and initial entry?
Well, right there at the airport, at school, the principal of the school was a graduate from West Point,
Okay.
and he somewhat controlled things, and he worked out a system for me where the Army or the Air Force wanted me to stay in the school, but take the courses they want me to take, not the ones I want to take, which shocked me.
Yeah.
Because I had trouble having lost my mother when I was a young fella. I didn't get too much out of the education
Right.
as other kids, and I would be moved around quite a bit as the days would go by, and at home, and different people taking care of me.
Sure.
But that's the way that was.
Well, so then after that you finished school, did you remember where you went for your initial then military training, Air Force, Army,
Right.
Air Corps training?
I was in the Air Force at that time. I was
Right.
sworn in at that time when I signed up. And then I went back to school, and there the fellow in charge of the school told me he was a captain from the West Point, and he had contacted West Point, and he was going to tell me what they want me to do, which was to stay in school,
Right.
but take all the math courses and science courses and so forth. And I looked at that like that was going to be a big overtaking because I
Yeah.
haven't been doing too well in school because of my home.
Well, this sounds like I think it was called the Air Cadet program. Does that sound familiar to you?
Well, I did a lot of stuff like that, anything I could get my hands on, but I did but want to fly.
Right. So when did you get a chance to get training to actually be around airplanes at an air base or Army base?
Well, I went to a basic training first, and that was down in Florida.
Okay. Yeah. So
Couldn't
tell us
have
about
asked-
basic
I couldn't
training
have
in
asked for a
Florida.
more beautiful place to be. And we didn't have modern stuff to train on. and I didn't have enough clothes to fit me because I was too little and thin. So my father would ship me clothes because he sold men's clothing,
Okay.
work clothing. And so he would ship me stuff to fit me, so I looked a little more like a soldier. And because the comments were very difficult from the sergeants and so forth on inspection, like, how come your tie doesn't fit, and so forth. It was a tough way to be, but I was small and not very. I weighed 150 pounds,
Yeah.
so I wasn't big. But
Okay.
they didn't give up on me.
Yeah.
Then I went on through school and finished school, and I passed all the grades they wanted,
Okay.
and not that it was easy, and I did take French. That was tough.
You took what?
French,
Oh, the French language.
yeah.
Okay. How'd that work out for you?
Well, I thought I might need that,
Yes.
so that worked out pretty good.
Okay.
I like that, but it's tough.
Now, when you were still in the training in Florida, were you actually now getting into airplanes, or was this
No,
still
this
just?
is starting to learn about what the Army is. If you're training, you're exercising, you're learning about guns, yes, and you're learning about tanks and
Sure.
all the different things involved, but the biggest thing is you do a lot of training
Right.
because you're fresh off the street, and they want to make a good soldier of you before you get started.
Now, were you still a trainee, or were you now a
I'm
lieutenant
still
or
a private
private? Okay.
Trainee.
Private trainee. Okay. Well, so then where did you go after the Florida training?
But then they made me that's when I went to military school
Okay.
in Ohio. I can't remember the name of the college, and it was a substitute for West Point. West Point would not need, you couldn't do the job to train Air Force officers.
Right.
So that's how that was worked.
Okay.
And that was the Air Force of that was the substitute for the academy.
Okay.
And we went there for a year, I believe it was.
Okay.
And they had an airplane, and they taught me to fly. And the flying, I found out, were Red Bank Airport
Oh, wow.
in
Really?
Ohio.
Yeah. Oh, Red Bank,
And
Ohio.
it was a shock,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
it took me for a little while to realize this. But I didn't pay too much attention to it until I graduated, when the fellow ahead of the whole program for flying said, "I didn't know you were here." He said, "Now you tell me. I could have made you a hotshot fighter pilot."
Ah.
I said, "Well, that's what I wanted to be." And he said, "Well, you're a little bit too late, but who do you think's in the room here who's looking at the window?" I said, "They look like a friend of mine in high school." He says, they're his brothers.
Okay.
I said, "Well, what a small world."
Yeah.
And that was all just an exciting thing for me. And this is after we've finished our training and we're ready to move off to Texas
Okay. So now, so when you completed this training, did you become a second lieutenant?
to be a flyer.
But you were a lieutenant
Right.
now, right?
When I
Okay.
get down there,
Yep.
I've been told that they want me to be a navigator.
Okay.
And one thing or another, I'm not unhappy, and I'm not happy now that I chose that, because they did train me to be a pilot and a navigator,
Okay.
and that is important because in the bomber, the three men are flying the plane, and I'm one of the three. And I flew the plane from, actually when we flew a plane over, I flew from California to to the island off California, and first stop, and everybody else slept because they were all tired out, and I didn't have a choice because I had to stay awake because I had to keep sending messages into the authorities that when I'm on my way, so I had to stay awake anyway. So that's the way it would go.
Okay. Well, and what kind of planes were you flying at this point?
These were 4-engine B-24s.
Okay. Yep.
And it's the newest, biggest one they had ever made, and it was far beyond the others, and it was also constructed with the use of surveying or for navigation. They were prepared so that I would be able to use the stars for navigation.
Okay.
And not the radio or anything like that, because the stars could not be moved by the enemy.
Yeah, exactly. So you would do that from the cockpit of the plane with
Well,
the
I had
stars.
my own office behind the cockpit.
Okay.
And
but
if
in
they
the
need
plane.
a third pilot,
Yeah.
and on takeoff, I would help with the taking off.
Yeah.
Takes 3 men, and split it up and made it safer.
Okay.
And then I go back to my office, and then when they need me, and if they need me, I could take it over and fly the plane. And I flew in this case. They were too tired, so I flew the plane for that first trip.
And when you were navigating with the stars, not to sound ignorant, but were you using a
I
sextant as
navigate
well?
with the stars, but
Yeah.
I had someone take over while I was there,
Yeah.
who had responsibility and keep me alert of what's going on.
But was there
That was tough.
was there a piece of equipment you used to navigate with the stars, or just the star maps, or how did you actually do that?
Well, that's a very complicated question.
Yeah.
Because you got books for that, and you got to use your books in order to make your calculations, and pretty soon you become an expert at it. But
Okay.
it's a training of itself, and it was an education, and well, that really made the thing worthwhile more. So much I could do, and the enemy could not disturb my plane. I always knew what was going on. I saved the plane and the crews, other planes, over and over again because of that capability. I couldn't be shut down.
Right.
Because they knew I was coming.
Yeah.
They wouldn't know.
Well, then I believe from looking at some of the information, after your training in Texas, did you go up to Idaho? Was that the next place you went?
Well, from Texas, after finished the training, got my crew, and I was ready to get a crew training, and we moved to a couple of places before we got to where we were going to settle down, and that's in the West Coast, or in the West Coast. Let's see, that would be not California, but just above California, and off the coast. I can't remember the.
Okay.
That's where the base was for training, with the C-24, P-24.
Oh, the P-24. Okay. Okay. And I think I read somewhere too that one of your duties on the West Coast was you were looking for the balloons that the Japanese were sending over.
That was somewhat of a secret. The Japanese decided they had many ways of winning, and one way they used a lot of intelligent things that most people don't think about, but they could put a balloon in the air and with a bomb in it, and it could float across the Pacific Ocean and hit into where my airport was for training.
Right.
And when I was out on training missions, they'd always say, if you see a balloon that looks like it's got something it's carrying underneath, that would be their bomb, and we want you to shoot it down if you're going to have to distract yourself.
Yeah, so you were saying then, the
He just
balloons,
went to Hollywood, that's why
if
he
you,
dressed that
if
way.
you see the balloons, you were
But
supposed
that
to
was
shoot
a
them down?
military secret.
Yeah.
No one was supposed to know about to
Okay.
keep people from getting shocked.
Yeah.
So
And
I wasn't to tell anybody about it.
Did you see any of these balloons?
Pardon?
Did you ever see any of these balloons?
Yes,
Oh, you did?
I remember, but I think there was one that we shot down.
Okay.
I think we shot one down.
So you got one?
I think,
Yeah.
it seemed to me, with one of them,
Yeah, I'd always heard about these balloons, and I never actually met someone
we
that.
got tangled up somehow.
Yeah,
And many years later, when I was out there touring, and I brought that up at the bus tour, and I told them about it, they thought I was lying.
no. Yeah,
I
I've
never
definitely
heard
heard
about
about it. I've just never met anyone that actually saw
This
one.
is 20 years later.
Yeah, wow, okay. Well then, let's fast forward. When now your unit, you've trained, you've done all these things, you formed your crew. How did you then get to the Pacific Theater of War? How did you get over there?
How did you do what?
How did you get to wherever you went next into the combat zone for World War II? How did you get over there? Or where did you go?
Well, I'm on my way to deliver this plane.
Okay,
Now, this is the newest plane out, as far as I know, and it's a advanced design of the same plane, B-24, and but it had more equipment in it, and I could shoot the stars for navigation. I could shoot the stars instead of using a radio or any other means, so no one could just ruin my bookwork, because the stars, they can't move.
right, right.
And I used that all the way across. And it took about, I don't know, 5 or 6 stops before we got not to the South Pole, but we were heading down that. The Japanese had been able to conquer this land from their country all the way down to just in the area of the big island down there. Was a British held island. I'm trying to think of the name of it. It's well known. It's a huge island, and the British owned it, and they didn't have much of an army themselves, the British,
Right.
and they're free today. They're not a part of. I don't believe they belong to Britain anymore.
Okay.
They're free on their own, and I say that's where they were, and we stopped. I got there when they were bombing.
Okay. And what time or year do you think this was? And was
What
it like
year was that?
43, 44?
Probably, let's see, 44. This is more like 48, 46. Maybe just
Okay.
if I
Okay.
oh, 43.
Was it part, were you in New Guinea at this point? In Biak Island in New Guinea?
I do what?
Were you in New Guinea? I'm trying to figure out where you were at this point. Was it New Guinea?
In New Guinea. That's where my base was.
Okay, yeah,
The island I was in.
right.
I believe that's the name of it, which is very close to
Yeah.
this big island that the British.
Okay.
We think of it as a British island, but it's not. It's
Well, just tell us, like, what was everyday life at your air base there on the island?
well, they needed everything. There isn't anything they couldn't do with. So we came in with a plane. I was in the hopes that people would say, "Oh boy, we've got this brand new redesigned B-24, and it's got all this elaborate equipment on it and so forth." And I landed, and the process of getting my stuff together, my books and so forth, so I put in a report to the manager, to the captain or the leader of the air base. I heard a crash, I saw a fella coming into my office, and he's taking equipment. I said, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I'm throwing your stuff away." I said, "You can't do that." He says, "Why can't I do that?" "Who are you?" I said, "I'm in from the United States. I'm a sergeant, or I'm an officer at the time." And I said, "Why are you taking my stuff? You took 2 or 3 boxes of this big elaborate equipment I
Yeah.
have here." He said, "We don't need that." I said, you don't need it, I need it.
Yeah.
And I know how to use it. And I can teach everybody else here how to use it. Well, we don't need you. We do things on our own. And we're told to throw everything away because it's only going to substitute for a bomb or 2 that we would put in the plane. I said, well, that doesn't speak well of getting there and back.
Yeah.
Why? I said, you go a long ways for air bombing raid, and you could get lost or whatever. Well, why would you do this? And his answer was, that's not my problem, and we don't need this fancy this stuff. I figured this is the sergeant talking to me this way, and I figured he doesn't have any respect for even an officer because of his attitude, because I was a stranger from a long ways away with a brand new fancy airplane.
Right.
And he said, you probably won't fly it either. So there. I said, why not? I said, because it's been decided before you landed that the plane's going to be flown by everybody on the base in time. And everybody's going to have a chance. It's not going to be yours.
Okay.
So I said, well, I want to see the commander. He said, well, we don't have a commander. Well, I said, well, why don't you have a commander? And he said, because he was shot down and a mission, then he went out to find out why they're having problems succeeding with their bombing raids, and he never came back. And I said, well, did you go up and find him? No. Well, do you know where he would drop down so we could go take a look? No. Well, I said, well, how long ago? It was yesterday. I said, then who's taking his place? He said, nobody, so far, but there's people in the office. That is not a very good, hello, how nice to see you.
Yeah, that was your first day there, basically.
My first day at a real air base.
Yeah.
Where I'm going to be assigned.
Well, do you remember the name of the unit that you were with? What was the name of the unit or fighter squadron that you were with? Bomber squadron. What was the name of the unit?
They what?
What was the name of the unit that you were with?
Well, I'm in 20 B-24s.
Okay. Yeah.
And bombers.
Yep. Okay.
And they also have small planes there too. Mm-hmm. They didn't have a lot, and I don't think they had a lot of good planes.
Well, was this part of the 22nd Air Bomber Group?
Of my plane?
Yes.
At that time.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't remember the name of it.
Okay, I'm just looking at the notes here. It looks like it said
But
the
if I put it
22nd
down, I got
Bomber
it.
Group. Yeah. Okay. But so after your reception there, then did you get out on some missions eventually?
Well, I didn't know what I was going to be doing there, and they told me that we'll have to find something. I said, well, who can I report to? Well, we don't have anybody, but there'll be a fella in here shortly, and you can talk to him. I said, well, all right. And see, it's a navigator and a pilot. I had a lot of information that they want.
Right.
So that then meant I would belong to the organization as it was, and I flew the old beat-up airplanes they have, whatever it was, and no matter, I don't know how old some of them were, but we flew what we were asked to.
Right.
And through bombing missions there, and we were trying to protect the Japanese from landing on this big island. I can't remember the name of it, but it's famous, this island. And, but It's
Okay. Was it Guadalcanal? Was it part of the Guadalcanal campaign?
Guadalcanal, that's down there, right?
Yeah.
That's a big island.
Yes.
In fact, it belongs to, well, they're on their own now.
Right.
But they did belong to Great Britain. I think at the time it was Great Britain.
Okay.
And that was the island we were trying to stop. They wanted to stop them from landing, but that means they had captured enough property all the way from Tokyo to half the world, more than half of the world down to half the width of the world. They captured a lot of things.
Right.
So they did a good job.
Well, just can you tell us what it was like to be on a bombing mission?
Well, it's a very quiet thing because everything has to be working right. All the men have to have their duties, and we take it everything is very serious in regard to our part. And my part was a little difficult because I was the navigator. I was a pilot, third pilot, and same training as the other pilots, plus a navigator, and I would substitute for anybody on the plane,
Okay.
no matter who it was. I had enough knowledge to take care of anybody's place. So that's how we would handle that, including the part where a fighter plane bomber or gun, twin guns, were in a globe that drops down from the plane down below the plane. Nobody else would go into it, but the one who was assigned to it. And when he's not able to, that was me.
Oh, you would go down there?
Yeah, I'd go down there.
Okay.
Or I did a lot of on the tail end
Yeah,
because
okay.
the tail end of the plane, because the guy in the tail end fought this the whole time. He didn't want to go overseas, but he was afraid to get shot. But we were stuck with it. We didn't relish this attitude, but he was a sergeant.
Okay.
Outranked everybody on the plane except me and the officers.
Well, I'm looking at the notes here. It looks like you did 21 combat missions, bombing missions. So 21, that's pretty significant. So on those different missions, did you ever encounter any Japanese fighters that came up to try to attack you guys?
I did see an awful lot of Japanese fighters.
Did or did not?
I did not.
Did not, okay.
Because they didn't know we were coming.
Yeah.
And I didn't. I mean, we flew all over the place, the area, the old South Pacific,
Right.
from North Pole to South Pole, you might say,
Yeah.
but not quite.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I often wondered, things are kind of loose
Yeah, oh yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's such a big area
It's huge, yeah.
you're covering. And but I did my job and others.
Well, how about when you were actually dropping the bombs? Did you have Japanese anti-aircraft fire coming up at you, or were you generally unopposed? How did that?
Well, that's usually the case. If it's important enough, they had their
Right.
but their guns were not as elaborate. I would say probably as the Germans, because they didn't have to be. They'd gone half the world down without it.
Yeah.
Why did they need more? And they were doing very successfully, and would have probably conquered that island if we had not gone down
Right.
as a United States Army. That's where we stopped them there.
Well, what was life like back at the airbase when you weren't out doing missions? Did you ever have any? Did you have some time where you weren't overly busy,
we
like a little
stopped.
free time or recreation time?
Oh yeah, we stopped at about 5 times on the way down, making our way down, get gas,
Right.
and maybe 4 or 5 times. But you could do anything you want on the island, and you see these are islands in the Pacific And the areas where there's a town, you were not allowed to go in.
Okay.
Because you could upset the people. And so I wanted to go into town when I first got involved there, just to see what was going on.
Yeah.
But we found that we better stay out of irritating the local people. And it didn't matter to me, though. I had plenty to do. And I was busy with what I was doing to stay that way
Right.
most all the time. I was always busy.
Well, what kind of things were you doing at the base then to
What
keep
kind of
bu-
what?
What kind of things were you doing on the base to keep busy when you weren't flying? What other things were you doing on a daily basis?
Well, I'd be training
Okay.
or training the men, or always kept busy. One of the things that I worried about the crew, because I felt responsible for it.
Sure.
And I'd go down and four officers, they slept in another area than where the enlisted men sleep. And I'd go down there and get them out to play baseball and do things because I went into their rooms and their tents, and I looked at that and I figured, was something wrong with my crew? They're not, they need some more something. So I went down and took a look, and I came out with a handful of pictures of girls. And then I figured that's what's bothering them, and we're going to get them out and play baseball.
Yeah.
And they said, well, we're in a war. I said, well, this is part of your training. Training for what? I said, well, that's what you have to do to keep going.
Yeah. Did
So
you, well, you mentioned the pictures of girls. Now, on your airplanes, did you have any decorative art or pictures of girls or things painted on your airplanes?
Oh, no.
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 Okay.
But we didn't have much to do. Well, almost halfway down there, I guess I better tell you, one of the islands to get gas, they said, we want you to come to the mess hall when you get a chance before mess hall opens up, and we got some things to show you.
Okay.
So and the crew came over, and we waited, and the planes came up, and 3 airplanes came in, transports, big ones, and they're loaded, and they're all girls. I said, we're going to be replaced. I said to myself, no, that can't be. But they're all pregnant. Sending them all back home.
Wow.
They came from Australia. Australia was the island.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
And it was from Australia. But they wanted to take care of the girls, so they sent them back home again.
Well, these were American women.
The Americans.
Okay. Okay.
But that, you gotta clean the place up once in a while.
Sure. Okay. I hadn't heard that, but
Oh, see, the Pacific was not as strict, anywhere as strict as the European war,
right.
because of the nature of the whole operation, and everything was seconds. And if you got a gun, it might not work too well.
Okay. Right. Right.
And as the war success, with our bombing, heavy bombing, and so forth, we're getting more equipment out there to help
Right.
the local countries with their military, and we didn't have much to do but to fight the war and keep track of our men and our
Right.
health and food, and it's just to stay alive.
Well, how was the food? Tell us about the food.
The what?
The food. When you were
The food
eating,
was
how was
awful.
the food? The food was what?
The food was awful.
Awful. Okay. Well, why was it awful?
And I went down from 150 pounds to 98, 98.
Wow.
And that happened when I had to order the pilot to go up above the elevation he was at, because of the nature of the area that we're going to have to fly through to get back home from a bombing mission.
Yeah.
And I told the pilot, I said, I think we got to go another 500 feet because we've got to go up and over this tornado that's ahead of us, and I don't want to go into that. So he said, well, okay, so we did. And I said, I think the men are all healthy. And I know I won, but I took past that I could go higher and so forth. So we did that. And guess who passed out? Me.
Oh, you.
Me.
Oh, wow.
The only one.
The only one.
And so...
The lieutenant passed out on the
so
plane. Yeah.
they gave me artificial respiration.
Okay.
And probably that was a big help for me. And we landed. And after we landed, we got everybody out. And well, they all came out in plane. And this was a air base that we owned halfway to where we were stationed, because war was going on
Yes.
all over the place.
Right.
So we landed there, and they figured, the pilot figured he better get me checked out before he goes too far. If he waits, it may be too late. So he went in, and they came out, and they said, well, where's the guy that had this problem? I said, well, he said, well, standing over there. I was all 1 foot, but I was standing there. I had come to, and he said, you're staying here, buddy. So he said, okay. And I was assigned to the nurses, and they would feed me because they had food.
Okay.
And the men weren't getting the food they should, but the girls got the food. And that was important.
So this food was better. This was better food.
Yes.
Okay.
So I got a break there, and I stayed there. I think it was 3 weeks or something.
Do you remember where this was?
Huh?
Do you remember what island this was, or where this was?
No, I don't remember the
Okay.
island. It was halfway between the Philippines and the where we
Okay.
started from.
Okay.
And I knew at the time
Sure.
that it was okay to go there, but they didn't want to waste. And they kept me for three weeks
Okay.
until I got back again. But it was another interesting.
Yeah, and then you were linked back up with your unit and your crew. You got back to them.
Everybody went back.
Everyone went back.
So,
Well, so in these areas that you were in, were there problems with malaria?
no,
No malaria
I don't
problems?
remember anything about it.
No. Okay. Okay. Or any?
We did have things, but I didn't malaria.
You had one.
Well, maybe I'm wrong.
You had it.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you had like medical prevention measures for malaria or
Well,
other
they
diseases,
gave us-
tropical
They
diseases.
had doctors there and so forth.
Okay.
Who did what they could to keep you on your feet.
Yeah.
And that's what we were trying to do, was
Right.
keep the fellas out of bed when they're not flying,
Right.
exercising, and I got them out to play baseball.
Right. Yep.
Because that's better exercise than baseball.
Did you or any of your guys ever have any encounters with exotic animals like snakes or any kind of wildlife at the base?
I never of all the different bases I was in, I never had any involvement with animals whatsoever.
Okay.
And I don't think there's that many around. I mean, there's animals here, but, and the people who live there live on that.
Right.
But I didn't
Okay.
remember anything like that.
Well, while you were in World War II, how did you stay in contact with family members and loved ones back in the United States? What was the communication system?
Actually, it was a perfect situation. They didn't hear from me.
They didn't hear from you. Okay. Did you get any kind of letters or packages from the United States?
I think I did get some, and yet the Army claims that it broke down, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So I didn't get much mail from home. I did get something, but they didn't get the stuff going back.
Yeah.
And I think maybe they were afraid there was too much change. See, I would look at the mail that fellows would write, and I'd have to go over it and remove things what it indicated something they should.
Oh, that's like
So
censorship
we made
duties.
sure that
yeah.
was happening, but apparently they stopped that going through, because my dad, when I came home, told me, all we know is that no one knew where you were, period.
Okay, well, that seemed to work, that worked then. Well, you mentioned on entertainment and recreation, baseball. Did you ever have any USO shows come into your area? Any of the USO entertainment shows? No? Bob, okay. Well, in addition to what you've already covered, are there any other incidents that really stand out to you that were unusual, frightening, or humorous? Anything unusual that happened?
Yeah, every day.
Every day.
There's always something going
Yeah.
on, because you're just trying to make a living, but you're flying those missions, and you're trying to get them safely and back without anybody getting hurt.
Right.
That was the big thing.
Well, did you have some guys from your crews and from your unit that were killed or injured or lost?
We did not lose a lot of planes. They didn't have accuracy, but we also we had ways of working so that they wouldn't outguess us as we would sneak these bombing missions.
Okay.
So that would be the Japanese didn't get a lot of help from people. They were very well prepared to fight a war.
Well, was your base ever attacked by the Japanese?
Well, they were always.
But I mean,
Well,
did
let's
they
see.
attack your
Yes,
base?
in the beginning.
Yeah.
They were right there, and that's what we were flying through. But from then on, it was so, the areas are such huge areas, you wouldn't see them too often, because maybe they're figuring out it's only one airplane, or maybe just a half a dozen, they can't do
Right.
much trouble, but you may go out and bomb in oil reserve area.
Okay.
Well, we never had an fighter plane come at us
Okay. And
that I can recall.
okay. Did you ever see any Japanese ships on the ocean, on the sea?
Oh yeah,
You did see Japanese ships.
oh yeah.
Were you able to attack those Japanese ships?
We didn't normally do that, but if we had something, but no, we didn't. That would be more than we had equipment for.
Yeah, and that'd be pretty difficult to hit the ship with the B-24s.
But we would notify that to the authorities.
Okay. Okay.
There were small planes out there who did just that.
Did you get promoted at all during the time you were deployed? Or were you still a second lieutenant now, or did you get
Oh.
promoted?
They kind of forgot us.
They forgot you.
They didn't pay attention to that. But I went over, I was a second lieutenant, and I don't know, see, I stayed in during occupation too,
Okay.
and they didn't send me home.
Well, so let's fast forward a little bit then towards later in the war, and so the U.S. dropped bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Do you remember hearing about that while you were over there? The atomic bombs?
We did the bombing.
Yeah.
We're the ones who did the bombing.
Yes. Yeah. So as the war was ending, what can you tell us about your experiences as the war was winding down?
That's a good point. Well, war was, we were at the point, we worked our way up from down to the equator, or down to the big island down there.
Right.
All the way up to how do I put that?
Up into did you go to the Philippines?
Well, I was in the Philippines, and I was stationed there for a while.
Okay.
Flying missions, and in fact, when I left this island, I was on in the south in the beginning. I was moved from there to the Philippines,
Okay.
and then we would go from there, and our plane had great it was really a good plane. We could travel a lot and still be safe and
Right.
far enough away from the enemy that they're not going to bother us.
Right.
And they didn't bother us too much, and by bombing us, and we bothered them as more than the other way around.
Well, were you making bombing runs over Japan at this point, over the mainland
All
of
this
Japan?
time.
You were now, okay, so you were bombing, what was that like, looking down
We're
on Japan?
bombing air bases if they had any, and we were bombing areas where they were getting oil,
Okay,
gas, and that was dangerous.
sure,
They really were prepared for that, and I don't know how we ever got out of that because they were so prepared. That we were trying to get away from there before they shot us down. But we had a good crew, and we always maneuvered to find our way back in most cases.
well, even, do you remember hearing about the end of the war in Europe, you know, when Germany surrendered? Do you remember hearing about that?
Not too much. No.
No? Okay. But what about the late days of the war against Japan when again, about the atomic bomb? Do you remember the war ending with Japan? What was that like?
Well, it was right there.
I know, but well, tell us about it. What was it like when you heard that the war was over?
Well, what happened was that we were taking off for you might want to hear this. Taking off for bombing Japan in the heartland, and we're in the first island we had conquered, and but we were going to go out and do that, but they said, now how did that happen? Oh, they told us we're not going to bomb today. Go on back and go find yourself a secure area. And that's when they were going to drop the big bomb.
Right.
They did not know exactly how far out it would affect people.
Yeah.
So we had our planes on the runways, and our plane too. And we went back and I got everybody behind shelters, metal shelters and so forth, whatever we could find. This was in farmland where airport was. And so we had to protect ourselves in case this is going to be a bigger problem.
Right.
And that's what no one knew.
Right.
And that was the surprise.
Yeah. So what happened? Did you see anything, or were there any effects?
Well, the bomb went off, and we did not have any. We didn't hear it go off, and any of it. Well, I was flying when they dropped the big ones, but I guess. But we were in the southern part of Japan, the first island, and they told us to was on the runway go to bombing. They said go on back home and get rid of your bombs and go on back to and take shelter.
Right.
Because we do not know how far out
Right.
the effect will be. That's scary.
Yeah.
And you don't know what to expect.
Right.
They didn't either.
Well, so then several days after the bombing, Japan surrendered, and so when word reached you that the war was over, what was that like on that with your air crews and the guys?
Well, we were shocked because they didn't quit right away with the dropping of that bomb.
Yeah.
And so they had to go in and bomb the second time.
Yes.
And the next island. And that didn't sound too hopeful when I heard that. But they weren't ready to quit.
Yeah.
Their rule was they're going to try to beat us to the last woman, and they all have guns.
Right.
Everybody's going to die in Ireland. That's what we were led to believe.
Right.
And when that would be their word. But military, not military, but a Japanese leader of what would you call him? It's like he's a leader of the people, and he convinced them to quit,
Yeah.
and so we bombed them twice with that bomb, and that's all we had.
Yeah, we only had two. And so, like you said, after the second one, if they didn't surrender, you guys must have been going through war plans to
Right.
continue
But that-
bombing and
that's when
invading
the
Japan.
Japanese leaders,
Yeah.
he was one of the, I think one of the religious leaders said, we can't go on this way. We got to stop,
Right.
and they did.
Once the Japanese now surrendered, did you go back to the United States right away, or what happened to you now that the war is over?
Well, now we have to occupy them. So I was always up in the front lines. So we became we were doing that. We were taking over.
So you were in
military
Japan.
stuff.
You were in Japan as part of the occupation
Right.
force.
And doing whatever is needed to help. But we didn't have an awful lot to do. We're not bombing anything.
Right.
But they didn't know about outlying areas and so forth. But they kept us like, well, I was out there probably over a year before I got back.
Do you remember where you were in Japan? Where in Japan you were?
Yeah, where they dropped the bomb. We were right near there.
You were near there. Okay.
But there's we were not at the headquarters. We were just south of the. We occupied a building there, and then we made 2 or 3 moves. Pretty soon, and I'm flying missions out of there to Korea and all over like that as a courier.
Okay. Okay.
And with my plane, with another, not my plane.
Mm-hmm.
They put their bombers, but they switched me over to 2-engine passenger plane,
Okay. Yeah.
and I flew that one for probably another year, and they weren't letting us go home because they needed it.
Right.
There was a lot of straightening out to do, and men's spirits really spread all over the Pacific Ocean. That's a long ways, half the earth.
Oh, absolutely. Well, when you were in your occupation of Japan, did you have any interaction with any Japanese people? Well, I'm just trying to get a feel for what that was like in Japan right after the war.
We lived in a motel, in a hotel that didn't get bombed,
Right.
and we fixed it up. We lived there, and the girls would come in and fix the rooms up, and we used to kid them because we learned the language that way.
Oh, you learned some Japanese.
But the towns were flattened out
Okay,
a
so
great deal.
yeah, what was that like looking out over this destroyed area?
It's awful
Yeah.
to see all the destruction, but it's not as much as maybe a lot of people know. But Japan's, it's a pretty good sized place. But we had hit targets, and it'd be the planes that came from the over toward the United States. They were in the islands. They were making bombing runs too, and they had upset a lot of planes. There's a lot of damage done,
Right. Okay.
but they never. They just quit, and it was done by the religious people. They said, "This is ridiculous. You're just going to kill everybody."
Right. Well, eventually you did get back to the United States. What was it like finally coming back to the United States?
When I finally came back,
Yeah, well, tell us about that.
well, I came back and I figured, what am I gonna be doing? Say, do I want to stay in? And I could have been probably into going to outer space. That program was underway. And, but I thought about that and I figured, well, what's it gonna end up to? I'm not sure I don't know about that. Maybe I better stay out of it and go on my own, get an education and get smarter. It seems like I get education. So I decided I would go back to school again.
Okay.
I went to college.
So you were out of the Air Force, though, at that point, right?
Well, I was still in the Air Force.
Oh, still in it. Okay. Well, just on the homecoming, though. So I'm looking at a note. It sounds like you came back on a boat.
I came back on a boat.
Yeah. Do you remember that or anything?
Yeah, I had a plane, they burned it up,
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
I mean,
But when you came back, did you come back to New Jersey initially, or where did you go?
no, I came back to Washington. Washington I came back to.
Okay. Okay.
And
Well, then, thinking back on your military service, do you remember any awards that you got or decorations? Or special achievement recognition that your unit got?
we weren't thinking about that.
Okay. Okay.
We were doing our job. And
Oh. And Carolyn, why don't you stay close by? We're gonna, so show us these pictures that you got here.
What's that, Dad?
And maybe
something.
hold it up for the camera.
Why don't you show it that way? Turn it that way, Dad. Here we go, I will.
Yep. So
Tell me where.
what's going on in this photo, and who are these folks?
Who are all these people, Dad?
And the youngest fellow, he was training to be a navigator in the Navy. He's the youngest fellow.
Okay.
And here's the guy who was over with me. He's the oldest.
Just turn it a
He's
little.
not the oldest.
Yep.
And here's the fellow who was in the war before it started.
Okay. Well, now, are you in that photo?
I'm over here.
Okay.
There are 3 brothers and his 2 cousins. He's one of 3 boys, and the other 2 are his
Okay.
first cousins.
So those are
Five.
the,
These are the 5 West boys.
okay. Just tilt it a little bit. Yep.
Could
Perfect.
you?
That's perfect. Yep. Excellent.
All from Long Branch.
Excellent. And then what else do we got over there? The other photo.
Dad, what's this? I bet we should. This is his plane, I think.
Okay.
Let's give him a minute. And I'm going to say his B-24 crew. Hey, Dad, what's this?
What's that?
What's that a picture of? That's your plane, right?
What is it? What?
Is that your plane?
Back to the plane, yeah.
I want to tell him.
Hey, just hold that one up
And
again.
who's that? And your crew, right?
That's my crew.
Excellent. Okay. Excellent. And then I think there's one photo back there.
And my
Well,
pilot,
there's that one.
just died. 2
Oh, I'm
years
sorry
ago.
to hear that. And then this must
This
be
is
you in
Dad.
this photo as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I got just a couple more questions for you. You're doing great. Well, what did you do then? You went back to school, but what did you do with your career after your time in the Army, Air Corps, and the Air Force?
I thinking about all the different things. I figured, I'm a young fella, and I'm only 21, and I'm just getting started, and I got 4 years for free. So it was school, education, and I went to school at Monmouth College,
Okay.
which was in Long Branch High School.
Yes.
I think that'd be a good start. And I wanted to be an engineer, and I wanted to be an engineer to care of bridges and stuff like that.
Well, I understand you went on to a long career with the Port Authority.
Well, I went to the 4 years, 4 years to college, and I don't remember the name of the school.
I do. You went to Wittenberg,
Wittenberg.
Wittenberg in Ohio.
Okay.
And
He's also an Eagle
Um,
Scout.
I got my degree. They treated me so great. It was because when I went out there, I was older than a lot of the kids.
Okay.
So they asked me to run a building that students were in. So I did that for them, and they were very nice to me, and they couldn't do enough to be nice to me. And I graduated in good order as a civil engineer.
Okay.
And now the question is, what do you do with that? You know, where are we going to start? So I say, I went to school in Ohio. I'm going to go to work in Ohio. I found out that the four fellows who had degrees same as mine, all four of us, couldn't find any kind of an opening for an engineer. I figured, well, they know better than I do, but locally, probably, but I'd better go home. And I did. And the first thing I did was to answer an ad in the paper where they wanted an engineer to work on the turnpike.
Okay.
And I applied for it, and they hired me in Newark, and then they took me to out in the field and showed me what I was going to do, and I was going to be an engineer. And they gave me a stick, and the four of us that were applying at the same time, all civil engineers, and we paid half the price of what a laborer gets to start. But in those days, it was a job. Well, I figured, well, I don't know what this is going to lead to, but let's see what happens. And I know how good it is in Ohio, so it didn't look good. So I stayed with it, and I worked my way up to be in charge, more or less, of that whole area where the Lincoln Tunnel
Okay.
is connected in. And the fellow who was in the office stayed in the office, and I ran the job, and that was a career. And then I was called Mr. Asphalt, because this is the first asphalt pavement road in the country.
Okay.
And people came up from Florida, or from Texas, from Washington. A fellow came up, he says, "You're Mr. Asphalt or something." I said, "Why, yes, what can I do for you?" She says, "Would you like a job in Washington? This asphalt business is going to grow to big business, and we don't have anybody who knows anything about it. So if you could come down, we'd like you to come down." Wow. I got a girlfriend here. And I
Ah.
figured, I think, because then at that time I was thinking about working for the Port Authority. And fellows from the Port Authority were trying to get me to come over, because that was the part of the turnpike that I worked on.
Right.
And so they knew me, but these are fellows I knew from home who
Yeah.
worked there. So ended up working I went over and interviewed there, and they gave me a job doing what I wanted to do, working on taking care of all the airports in New York
Right.
and New Jersey, and plus the tunnels and the bridges, and this sounds like something I would like, say. So I took the job with the Port Authority, and I worked there, 30 years, 40 years?
Wow. Wow.
I don't know, I forgot now how.
46.
I worked for them for many years, and until I was 72.
Wow.
Commuted.
And at that time, I retired, so that it was time to go and working with the Port Authority. And
That's excellent. Excellent.
right, the Port Authority, because that's when the city employees took over the airport
Okay.
as a private organization, but they took over everything.
Okay.
And they would have fired me probably if I stayed, from how they treated me the last couple of days. And I figured, well, I'm glad I'm leaving, because I had already put my papers in. But I was 72 at the time.
That's a long time, yeah.
And at that time, people were not living this long, 95, which I am now.
Yeah, congratulations. It was just a couple weeks ago, or a month ago.
And I wanted to play
October.
golf, more golf and so forth, and do things like that. And I had worked long enough, and I got a great buyout,
Okay.
pensions and so forth. So I figured this is the time for me. And most people wouldn't go any further than 70
Yeah.
in the Port Authority. They were retiring then. Well, they weren't even then. They were
Yeah.
retired earlier.
That's very impressive. I guess I'm down to just two more questions here, and so just take one more moment. Think back again to your World War II time, and as you look back on that now, if there was just one thing that you would want future generations, your grandkids and potentially great grandkids, what would you want those future generations to know about you and your wartime service?
Well, I would want them to know that I was very lucky and proud to be born in this country, because there's no other country like it. And I can't think of a place or a job I could get that was better than the one I had. And it went well. And fortunately, I left at the right time, because when I was leaving, they were turning everything over to quiet. It was run like you can't work. It wasn't run like a business
Right.
of the city. It was a private company, and everything was fair and square. But from then on, it was your guy next door could get a job if you were working, and he'd be the chief engineer. And
Right.
the Port Authority didn't fare too well, and I don't think it's doing. I'm not sure yet if it's going to be able to continue, but I don't know what they're doing, because they didn't leave me in a good order,
Right.
because I think they were, well, they didn't leave it. It didn't leave that way, and I figured, well, I don't know what it's all about, but politics is
Right.
more vicious in New York than any place.
Sure. Well,
And all I can say is stay away from it.
Yeah, I liked your answer though about, lucky and proud and serving for the United States. And so I guess the last question, and you're surrounded by friends and family here, so I'll let them ask too. If there's any other question from the floor or from the audience, or if there's anything else that you wanted to tell us on this great interview today. Well then, no, that's good. Well, so Mr. West, on behalf of the museum and the team and myself, I want to present you that's a military challenge coin. If you could hold that up for the camera, just so we can see that. Yep, that's our Americans in Wartime Museum and the Voices of Freedom Project, which is what this interview is. We'll present that to you as a small token of our appreciation for everything that you did for the nation and your wartime service. And it's been a pleasure for me to get to do this interview with you today.